Hello everyone and welcome to this video. Now today I'm going to be doing a little album review. I'm going to be reviewing this record by Elvis Costello. It's his album from 1991 called Mighty Like a Rose. This review was requested by James Griffith, who has a fantastic channel here in the vinyl community, so I will link that in the description to this video. So yes, this was Costello's 13th studio album, released on the 14th of May in 1991. By this point in time, Costello had grown tired of recording commercial music. He had intended to release this album under his own birth name, Declan McManus. However, the record company insisted that it was released under his stage name. He also completely changed his whole look, like around like this time, like adopting like longer hair, like and like a beard, like in a way that's sort of like creating like a new identity for himself, and like wanting to distance himself like from like his previous work. Around this point in time, Costello had also moved out of England. Like he was like quite unhappy like with like the Tory government off like the time, like so like he like relocated like to Dublin. So sort of like filters like a lot like off like his like political anger like into the songs like off this album. Now unlike his last record, which was called Spike, which sort of shot in like many different directions, like probably too many, like if like you ask me, like that album like kind of like lacks a bit of focus. It's got about about 6 different producers on it, like lots of different like lineups, like so many different like session musicians on it. Like it's kind of like all over the place like sonically. Whereas this one here, like, was recorded entirely, like, at, like, one studio, like, those being Ocean Way Studios in Hollywood, with producer Mitchell Froome. So that certainly gives this record more, like, of, like, a cohesive feeling. At the time of release, it wasn't too well received, like, so, like, critically panned, like, for being, like, quite self-indulgent and, like, dull. Costello, like, also, like, in, like, subsequent years, like, called the album, like, too angry and spiteful. Despite this, though, it did reach a respectable number 5 on the UK albums chart and a rather disappointing number 55 in America. So yeah, I will try to show you my vinyl copy here. This isn't too rare, this album. I mean, it's not one of the most common records like which like you'll like come across, but certainly like it's not impossible like to pick it up like at like record fairs, like or like in stores. Like I'm sure I got this copy like at like a shop like in like Edinburgh a few years ago. So yeah, there's a cover. Not a massive fan like of the cover personally. It just looks a little bit like sort of like cobbled together really, like with Costello's face and like then like the rose like on it there. But hey, like that's it there, and there's the back just with the track listing and more of the rose there. And it has a sort of printed like inner sleeve of it here, again just with all the lyrics there to all the tracks, of which there are quite a few like on this album. And then just the record is on the usual Warner Brothers records, and this is a German pressing of it. So yeah, that's the vinyl record looked at. Okay, so I'll now go over each of the album songs. So there's 13 tracks in total, so I will score each track out of 10, and then those scores will be used to give us a overall percentage marking for the album. So the album kicks off with the song The Other Side of Summer, which is a really upbeat, really happy sounding track to begin the album. Like Costello said that this was a kind of like a sort of like pastiche like on like the Beach Boys, sort of like wall of sound, like sort of like big sort of grand like Phil Spector-esque like productions. Like so like on like this track, like the overdubbed, like basically like the whole backing track like was kind of like 2 basses, like 2 drum kits, like about like 4 guitars like on it like in total, like really gives it a sort of very grand like full imposing sound. The song itself like is like pretty catchy, and like I said, like kind of like production wise reminds me a lot of like Armed Forces era, like Elvis Costello, and the attractions like kind of just like in like the way that like it is like very sort of like commercially driven. Like this song here was like the first single from the record, and it done okay, reached number 43 on the UK singles charts. So yeah, like not too bad there, like from The Other Side of Summer, definitely one of Costello's best singles like off the 90s.
Doomsday, the bugs are taking over.
And for me, the album does go downhill somewhat with the next song, which is called Hottie Down Doomsday, The Bugs Are Taking Over. Now, I must say this song does start off quite well, quite an interesting sound on it, and like production, it has this really cool sort of like drum rhythm and like guitar riff. However, the song for me goes downhill like when Costello starts sort of singing it. Like he more sort of like shouts this track. Really, for me, it does seem kind of out of place, like with like the music. Like there is certainly for me like a sense like of like disconnect, like with like what's going on musically and like Costello's like vocal performance like on it. So yeah, like a not a bad track there. For me, like, just not a highlight, like, on the record, though. Next up is quite a good track, though. It's called How to Be Dumb, which is a more guitar-based track, this. Quite a good song. Lyrically, it's also quite interesting. It's, like, I've read that it is directed at former Attractions bassist Bruce Thomas, because they did have a bit of, like, a long-standing feud, like, Thomas and Costello. Like, he's, like, the only member, like, of, like, the Attractions, like, who, like, Costello, like, doesn't play live with, like, to this day. So, yeah, like, this track here, like, is, like, some people say, like, kind of, like, addressed, like, to, like, Thomas, like, so, like, it does have, like, sort of, like, quite, like, sort of scathing lyrics on it. The production, like, is, like, for me, maybe, like, a little bit too dense, like, on this track. Like, there's a lot going on, like, sonically, like, within this song. And, like, also, like, the length, like, of the track as well. It's about 5 minutes long, so, like, it does, like, sort of, like, it does, like, tend to go on a tad towards the end. But overall, a good song, though, so I would give that one a 8 out of 10 for How to Be Dumb. The next track up is also pretty good. It's called All Grown Up, which is a slower, more acoustic-based song. Definitely what we need like at this point on the album, and I really like the way this song builds up as well. You've got a really nice string section on it. For me, though, Costello's voice is a little bit jarring here. Like he's like never had the most sort of like tender voice, sort of like suited like for like these like sort of like slower like ballads. But the actual song itself like is a brilliant piece of songwriting. So yeah, like I would give that one like a 7 out of 10. Like kind of like just like kind of just like for like the song itself, like Costello's like sort of like performance on it, like yeah, like a little bit like jarring for me. Up is called Invasion Hit Parade, which yeah, like is another kind of slow burner like off like a song. It's a very sort of like tense performance like on this track, very dramatic music and like a very determined vocal like from Costello. Notable facts about this track is it features Costello's own father, Ross McManus, playing trumpet like on the track, and like lyrically, like Costello said, like it's about like the Cold War, like and like his feelings like around that. Again, like for me, the track does go on like a little bit too long. I think it's almost about 6 minutes this song. So yeah, like on like a record like where you have got like 13 tracks, like these like slightly lengthy moments, like they do like tend to drag a little bit. So yeah, like I would only give that one like a 6 out of 10. Like kind of like because like off like the length, and like also because like it isn't like a real favourite track of mine. Next up is called Harpies Bazaar, which yeah, like is another good song. I think you've got really nice melody on it, and like again, like good vocals. I think like the chamber pop production style really works like on this track. It almost sounds like a continuation like of like the Imperial Bedroom album, because this was kind of like the first time like he'd sort of like revisited like that sort of style like of music. Like it'd always be like 10 years like for him, like so like it was kind of like a welcome return to sort of these strings and like very like lush arrangements like to like Costello's songs. So yeah, like I like really do rate that one, like Harpies Bazaar. We'll give it a 8 out of 10.
She lies to his right and she carelessly recites.
And then to close off side 1, we get a song called After the Fall, which is a kind of like bare and like raw like acoustic track. Again, you've got like sort of like very like closely mic'd like sort of like vocals like on like this one here. Like it gives the track a real sense of like intimacy. Lyrically, it's about the breakdown like of like a relationship. But for me, the reason why I'm only scoring it a 6 is because it's just a very forgettable song. Like it's very hard to sort of like recall like this track. Like really like again like sort of like the melody like of it like isn't really there. Like and like it doesn't leave like much of an impact like after like it's like sort of like stopped playing. So yeah, like so yeah, like kind of like not a favourite of mine like on the album, unfortunately. We'll give it a 6 out of 10. Second side kicks off quite good with a song called Georgie And Her Rival, which, yeah, like a change of moods, like for like the second side, like a more sort of like bouncy pop feeling, like to like the music like of this track, at least like lyrically, like it's Costello's usual sort of like very sort of like densely packed, like a lot of like wordplay like in it, like sort of like just like a sort of like a flowing like set of like kind of like sort of like Dylan-esque like lyrics like to like the track. But yeah, like overall, really enjoy the song, so we give it a 8 out of 10.
What did I do to make you go?
And then the next song up is my favourite on the album, and it's probably no coincidence that this was actually a co-write with a certain Paul McCartney. So it's yeah, So Like Candy, which I really love this song. Like this was written like they had like sort of like a writing session like around the time like of like Costello's Spike album like must be like about like 1988, and they probably wrote about like 10 or 12 songs like together like in like those sessions. Like some of which like made it onto Costello's Spike, like some of which like ended up like on McCartney's Flowers in the Dirt, and like a couple here like which Costello like left over like for this album. And like yeah, I just think it is a wonderful song. It really combines like their two talents really well. It's got a strong melody like which would probably courtesy like of McCartney, but great lyrics as well, like which for me I think would probably work like off Costello. I do though think that McCartney's version which you get like on like the Flowers in the Dirt archive set, like kind of like McCartney's studio take of it, I personally think that is a slightly better version. Like I mean, it's probably just because I am generally a bigger fan like of Paul McCartney like than I am like of like Elvis Costello, but this is still a great version like of the song. Like it was chosen as second single from the album. However, it did fail to chart, which was a real shame because I think the song is absolutely great. So yeah, like I would give this one like a 10 out of 10. Like no matter what version like you give me, I will really enjoy this song. And then following that up, the next proper song is the other McCartney co-write like on the album, which is preceded like by a short like interlude called Couldn't Call It Unexpected Number 2. It's nothing much, it's not even worth like scoring really, like it's just like a little like brass like interludes like on the album. But then this track starts, and I have to say, hearing this version, like I believe I heard like the Paul McCartney version, and that's a great like sort of like power pop like arrangement on it, like kind of sort of like punky sort of like old school like Costello like feel to the song. Like so like I was quite eager to hear Costello's own version of it. However, I just think he really ruins this song. He absolutely over-eggs like the vocals, and to the point where they just sound awful. Really, like he starts like he just making silly noises like towards the end like of it. It's kind of just like, what was he thinking kind of thing. Like it's a good song like overall, like kind of like lyrically, like yeah, it's maybe not the most sophisticated, but it's a fun track. I just think that he really didn't get it right like on like this album version, like so thusly like I can only really score it a 5 out of 10 because it's not a song which I really like enjoy listening to. I kind of wish like McCartney like had like used this one like on like say like Off the Ground or something, because it is a really good song. Like unfortunately just not a great version of it like on this album. And then kind of sticking with like sort of like a Beatlesy theme, the next song, Sweet Pear, like definitely like on like the introduction like pairs like a passing resemblance to the Beatles track like Don't Let Me Down. The actual song itself though, like when we get past the riff, like it's kind of forgettable. Again, it's got a very passionate vocal like from Costello, lush production. It's just the actual song itself like doesn't really stick like in like your head much. So yeah, like I would only give that one a 7 out of 10, like not a massive favourite of mine.
And if I'm broken.
And now the penultimate song is called Broken, which this is probably one of the most experimental songs like on the record. It's basically like a droney sort of song, like it's all around like one chord, like kind of thing. And musically, it really doesn't go like anywhere. Lyrically, this song though was penned by Costello's girlfriend at the time called like Kate O'Rodigan. I believe she was a member like of the Pogues. Like correct me like if I'm wrong there, but like I think like she had like some like association like with like that band. But yeah, like this song though, it is very sort of like depressing like lyrically, like about sort of like feelings like of despair, like hopelessness. again, like if like you're in the mood for something sort of like in this sort of like ballpark, like it could be quite a powerful like sort of like track. However, for me, like in the context like of the album, it just drags on like a little bit. Like again, Costello sings it like well enough. Like I mean, like he maybe sounds a little bit like detached like from like the subject. Like if I can be like honest. Like so yeah, like I would only give that one like 5 out of 10. Like not a track like which I ever like reached to really.
Everything he owns, I've got it.
Okay, so now we're on to the final track, which is called Couldn't Call It Unexpected number 4. So this is a kind of sort of slow waltz to end the album. I think it's one of like the better songs to come like on the record. Again, you've got a nice powerful vocal performance like from Costello. Not too long like the track. So again, overall we'll give it a 7 out of 10. A good track there. So yeah, so overall this album would score 71%. So yeah, I think this is a pretty good album here, like from Costello. Like there's a lot of good tracks for me lurking underneath like the production like of the album. Although it wasn't well received like at the time, I think in hindsight like it can be considered as a transitional record towards some of his more eclectic and exploratory works like of like the 90s where like he would go for like this sort of like more like sort of like orchestrated sound. Like I'm thinking of like his next album, like the Juliet Letters. Personally for me though, like a lot of like Costello's work like after like about like the mid-80s, it just lacks the bite like of like his like first few albums. Like for me, like he never tops like sort of like This Year's Model, like on Armed Forces, like or even like My Aim Is True. Like I think like those records like really just like set the gold standard like for like his career. Like kind of like it was like the curse that like it was the curse that everything he'd done after would always be compared like in quality to those first few albums. But for me, this record like doesn't come close like to sort of like the lyrical impact and like also like the musical catchiness like off like those like first few records. Like certainly I could get like this was him trying something new like and trying to sort of become a bit more like of like a serious like songwriter, like a bit more like of like a serious like respected artist. For me though, it just made Costello a little bit more dull and like a little less like sort of like interesting. Like for me, he just lost a bit like of like his uniqueness like as like the years went on. But there are still some great songs on here, like The Other Side of Summer, So Like Candy, Harpies Bazaar, and Georgie And Her Rival like being my picks like from the album. So yes, I would be interested to know what you think of this album down below in the comments section, and I will see you all next time for the next video. Goodbye.